Hey everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I'm hanging out at home and I have this rock commission to paint, so I figured why not paint it live so you guys can see what I'm doing. I am using StreamYard, so at the top of this video there should be a link to grant StreamYard permission to see your name if you type anything in the chat. I'm going to be trying to keep an eye on my iPad here to see if anyone is commenting so that I can comment back and hopefully I can see your name. Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. It's a weird technology glitch. So I'm going to get started with painting this. You can see I've got this rock I just picked up. I live by the Columbia River here in Washington, and so we have a lot of river rock. So I picked up this rock there a couple weeks ago, and all I did was paint it white, and I just used just a basic white paint. It was apple barrel acrylic like craft paint, and so really inexpensive to get. You can get it at Walmart or anywhere, or you can use a nicer brand too. That's fine. And then I went ahead and pre-drew out my design on here. So you guys probably saw on the preview picture, there's a different rock that I used for the picture where I did like yellow daisies with the sunflower. This one, she wanted tulips to commemorate her mom who had passed away. So her mom's, one of her favorite flowers was tulips, and her favorite color is purple. So we're going to do some purple tulips and a really pretty hummingbird with some metallic paints. So I went ahead and poured my paints here. I'm going to bring them under the camera so you can see. I've got a metallic turquoise, metallic purple. This looks black in the camera to me, but this is a dark purple tone. I've got metallic green, a regular green, and a little bit of yellow just for the leaves so we can kind of change them up a little bit. And then I've got some paper towels, a baby wipe, and I've got a few different paint brushes here that I'm going to be using. This one is just a size 8 Crafter's Choice round brush. I use it when I'm teaching paint parties, but it's a bigger brush for this rock that I might use to get in the background or maybe on the tulips and the wings. And then I've got a few other round brushes that are a little bit smaller. And I also grabbed a dotting tool to maybe use on the eye. Usually I just flip my paintbrush around and use the end of it as a dotting tool, but since we're working on a smaller surface, I'm going to use the dotting tool today. I've also got my bucket of water ready to go and extra paints and some Posca paint pens because, you know, those are the best when we're painting on rocks. Anyone who has ever painted rocks before, feel free to comment or share anything that you've done if you've used Posca paint pens, if you like them. So I'm going to go ahead. Normally I kind of start with the background, but with commissions I kind of like to see how I get the feel for it and kind of go from there. So I'm going to start with painting the flowers. Since I'm right-handed, I like to work from left to right so that I don't pull my arm into my paint as I go. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this larger round brush, and I'm going to dip into my purple paint. I think I'm going to start with my darker purple. And I just want to come up along these edges here, and I think I want to make it nice and dark towards the bottom, and then have the purple fade as it goes up. Now, if you're wondering the brand of paint I'm using, this purple is a Liquitex Basics Prism Violet is what it's called. There are also other acrylic paints that I like to use. Usually, I also like to use the Artist Loft Level 1 brand. I use those for teaching paint parties as well. And those are just really user-friendly. If you can't afford to get some of the nicer acrylic paints, you can always do craft paints, especially with painting rocks. So for me, I started my business with rock painting, and so it's kind of near and dear to my heart to get to still do rock commissions here and there. Kind of making a crease on the centers of these a little bit. This brush is a little bit big, but it has a kind of a nice point to it. So I'm kind of just pulling these down. To where the center of my flower might be. I'm going to kind of separate these two petals over here. I know it might be kind of hard to see that with my hand in the way. See if I can look at the camera and paint at the same time so that you guys can see. And see how that first layer I put on, it's kind of a lighter purple, but if I put on another layer, it's going to be nice and pretty and dark. So I'm going to kind of come down at the base here and add an extra layer, especially towards the bottom where maybe there's some shadow underneath the flower. And then before I get into my next color here with the metallic purple, I'm going to just do the same thing to these other tulips, which hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit better. The thing about working with rocks is they are kind of a different shape, and so you can't really use a projector, although, I mean, I guess you could. You could get a flat rock and try it out with a projector. You could draw your picture out on it ahead of time to make it easy. You could try just sketching it out. That's usually what I do. I just like to sketch it right out onto the rock. And then you've got to kind of understand how to work around a curve a little bit. And so that's a lot of fun too, to be able to kind of challenge yourself and use a different surface to paint on. So I can see some people are watching, but I don't see any comments yet. If you are watching, please say hi. I'd love to say hi and see what you're up to. If you have already and I just am not seeing it, it's totally StreamYard and just the way that they do things, I guess. It's hard to be able to interact with people more. I think maybe I'm gonna have to start having like a friend go live with me so that they can help with the comments and stuff. Sometimes I get them right afterwards, so if you want to say hi anyways and have something kind to say, feel free to leave a comment and maybe I'll get it later. So again, I'm kind of remembering there's kind of a crease that's in the middle of these petals, so I'm kind of pulling my purple up a little bit. I'm going to get darker again down at that base. I really love painting flowers. I love painting animals, but I also love painting flowers. So if you've ever painted a tulip before, say so in the comments, and I'd love if you want to share any of your work that you've done. I'd love to see your progress. So there's one more that I drew down here. I don't know if you guys can see that okay. And not every flower is exactly the same. Maybe this one's going to have, this bottom one is going to be a little more purpley because it's underneath here. Pull one more little striation up there. Now this isn't looking like much yet, but I promise it's going to come all together. So now I'm pretty happy with that. I'm kind of getting random on the edge of the flower. Let me pull this over so you guys can see better. Just so that I can start blending in with my metallic. So I didn't rinse my brush. I just went ahead and added some of my lighter metallic purple paint. And so now I'm going to layer a little bit over that other purple and pull the metallic purple up towards the top of the tulip. Again, kind of leaving an idea of where the crease is at in the flower. I would really like to do these videos more as like a Facebook Live, but I can only stream on one page at a time if I do that. So I'm trying to learn how to stream at multiple places at once. And if you're just hopping on, we're getting our flowers situated here. We're doing some purple tulips, which I know we're kind of past springtime, but this was a commission, and so one of this lady's favorite flowers was tulips, so that's why we're working with those. You can't forget these flowers back behind, the petals that are behind here, and behind our little hummingbird's beak. And you know, I don't think hummingbirds normally like tulips either. Maybe if you're watching and if you know anything about hummingbirds, I'd love for you to share. I know they like, you know, flowers that are shaped in the same shape as their beak, so that it's easy for them to get the nectar out. But I know that tulips aren't really that shape, so maybe they like tulips, maybe they don't. I'm going to flip it upside down here. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that saying that when you're painting as an artist, if you flip it upside down, it'll change your perspective, and it'll make it sometimes so that you can see things a little differently. I'm going to kind of look around this way. That's the cool thing about having a rock too. Like, you know, if it's rounded, it can kind of spin a little bit. If it's really flat, maybe not. But you could always get one of those cool turntables and spin those as well. My friend Veronica just did a live video for me in my membership group, and she had one of those, and it was really cool to watch her use it while she was teaching. I thought, man, I've got to get one of those. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with the purple on those, so I'm going to get a little bit of white here, and I'm going to lighten up my metallic purple. If I can get any more. Oh, there it goes. I just refilled all my white and my black yesterday, so maybe I filled them a little too full. I'm just going to scoop it out here. Okay, so now I've got some white on my brush from scooping it out. Now I'm going to dip into my purple paint. I'm going to lift up my palette so you guys can see. I'm just using palette paper. It's really easy to use when you're teaching. You can just throw it away. And I'm going to make this really nice light purple. I'm going to make it even lighter than that. Probably even come over here. Even lighter than a lavender, I think. And leave these top edges nice and pretty and white. See how you can just pull that right down into the purple and it just blends really beautifully. I'm going to hold this up a little closer so you guys can see. I don't know if the camera's doing it justice. It looks really good in person. I've noticed that a lot. You know, we can take all the pictures in the world, but actually seeing art in person is a completely different experience. So I left kind of a white line separating these two petals so I don't forget where I'm going with those. I'll separate them here in a bit with a little bit of black, I think. I'm kind of I'm pulling the purple pretty much all the way up to that edge, just so that I can go over it a bit with some white here and blend it a little bit better. I'm going to go upside down over here. Kind of like when it pulls down a little bit further. And if you weren't sure, you know, what you wanted your tulips to look like, you could always have a reference photo. I kind of looked at a reference photo first before I started just to get an idea. But if it's easier, like if you're painting, just to have one on hand to look at as you go, that's great too. And if you're hopping on and watching, feel free to share what you're up to today. Maybe you're shopping or just spending time at home with family. Okay. So I am liking that. I think I'm going to, I'll go in a little bit later and kind of help to separate the petals a little bit more with some fine details, because I'll have to do that to my hummingbird too. So for now, I'm just going to let it be. I'll add my highlights a little bit on the tips towards the end. I'm going to go ahead and get in here and paint my stems. So I just went ahead and rinsed my brush, and I'm just wiping it off on my baby wipe. I saw when I came to sit down, my daughter left this little message for me. It said, "Love you, Mom." I thought that was so sweet. Okay, so I'm going to go into just my regular green, and I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow with it just to lighten it up a bit. So I'm going to show you here. So I took this regular green, it's like a sap green, and mixed a little bit of yellow, so it's kind of a lighter, kind of like a grassy green, and or springtime green, I should say, which this would be so fun to do in the springtime, this painting. If we could kind of simplify it a little bit and do some sort of paint party design with it, that would be fun. So I'm just filling in my stems. I'm not worrying about the shading or anything like that yet. I'm not worrying about my leaves too much. this initial step with just kind of getting that base tone in is called underpainting. So I'm just underpainting my main color idea here, and then I'll go in and add some shadows and highlights. So I'm going to come down here and add the rest of that stem. Okay, and then I've got some leaves that are kind of hanging out, so I'm going to do a technique that's called double loading because I kind of want the leaves to look like striated a little bit. So I'm going to dip both into my yellow and my green, but I'm not blending it like I did before to make a solid color. And so now I can see there's a leaf back here, and because it's behind, it's probably going to be dark. So I'm going to wait and do that one a little darker. Let's do this guy over here. See that striated look that it's creating by combining both the yellow and the green but not mixing it? That's called double loading. And tulip petals are usually a little more wrinkly, but just to kind of get the idea here, since it's a smaller surface, I kind of left them a little more simplified. You could add a little wave in them if you wanted to. You were painting up this at home. And by the way, I'll post this video when I'm done, so if anyone who's missed out on watching it wants to watch it later, you can watch it later, or if you want to get your supplies together and paint along with it later, you could do that. Okay, now I'm going to get a little more in my darker green and get this petal up behind here. It's kind of hiding back there. And the thing about painting on rocks, see how I have, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a lot of little tiny holes everywhere. Like all rocks, unless they're super, super smooth, seem to have this. You could put it through a rock tumbler, make it really smooth if you wanted to, but they all seem to have some sort of little striations. So to fill those little holes, I just kind of wiggle my brush a bit as I'm filling them. As I'm painting, I should say. Okay, I'm going to come over here, pull this guy up. Maybe this one's gonna go behind here. A little darker with my green. I'm gonna tilt that so you guys can see it. This just reminds me of when I used to paint rocks for my my daughter for her school. If you do hop on and you're watching, please let me know if you can hear me okay. I think I finally got the hang of setting up the sound stuff with StreamYard. It took me a while. Okay, so now I'm kind of adding a shadow. I'm just getting in my dark green and coming up underneath, and I'm kind of going wavy with it to give the idea of that kind of wavy look on the leaf there. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. And then maybe there's a little bit of a shadow on this right-hand side of the stem. Definitely up underneath. And shadows are just, they sound so intimidating, but they're actually really easy if you're just layering your paint a bit or adding a little bit of a brown or a black to your paint. This one's going to be dark all the way, I think. I've decided. This one right underneath again. Down the right-hand side. And this kind of cool striated one, I'm going to get up underneath and again kind of wiggle my brush to give that kind of curled kind of look. And add a little bit more yellow to this one just so it's kind of balancing that other one. Although it will, see how this flower is kind of hovering over the top of this one? It should have some extra shadow right underneath it. So I'm going to add a little more green just underneath and kind of curve it to follow the shape of that petal. So we have that idea of that shadow there. I'm kind of softening the edges of where my shadows are that I made. Just since this is a rounded object, you know, the shape of the stem is kind of rounded. So I'm thinking about that and just kind of softening that edge. And you could add a little bit of yellow just on the very edge. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to do that. Just an idea of yellow along this edge here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm okay with that for the leaves. Next we can start working on our hummingbird. So that's the fun part, right? So we're going to do some fun metallic colors with the hummingbird. And so I think I'm going to start with kind of some purpley tones on the wings that lead down into some turquoise and green. So I'm going to switch and let's do this little guy. So this is a round brush, a size 2. It's not the best brush, but it'll do. It's cracking a bit. It's a wooden brush. I'm not a big fan. See, these little pieces fall off. I'm not a big fan of wooden brushes, but they work. And so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start with my dark purple, kind of like we did on our flowers. I'm going to turn this so you guys can see it. And pull my brush if I set it up like that, there we go, because I had to have it curving off the edge. I'm going to pull my brush from that leaf down, or not that leaf, the feather down, just like we were doing on our flower. So I'll kind of complement the flower on this opposite side, but with not quite as much purple. Okay, and then I'm going to move into, I will add a little bit of pink. So this is deep magenta. It's also an Artist Loft brand. I'm not going to worry about rinsing my brush, just going to get into my magenta here and kind of pull it down. Maybe I will wipe my brush just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. You guys can see the color. This is one of my favorite colors to paint and teach with, is this magenta color. And the trick with when you're painting animals a lot of the time is to make sure that you can follow the direction that their fur is growing or that their feathers go, and so pulling downwards as you move along the feathers helps to make them look really nice. Okay, I'm going to move into, let's make a light pink. So I just mix a little bit of white with my pink, my magenta. Maybe even a little lighter right here. Okay, so now I think I'm ready to move into some turquoise down here, but I'm going to go ahead and move over to this other wing first. Pull some of this white up. That's kind of pretty. And I'll probably have to go back over here with another layer of purple too. It might be kind of hard to see on the camera. And actually I have this ring light here. Let me see if I can. My camera for the rock is right here, so I have to try to make sure I'm not. Maybe that's better for you guys. There we go. Okay, so I'm just, see how this is kind of thin? I'll probably have to make another layer there. So now I'm going to move on to this other wing and again start with the darker purple. I need to rinse my brush. Or dry my brush, I had some water on it. Okay, so I'm going to go upside down again and just pull on the edges of the wings downward. This one's a little thick for being that close. I think I'm going to separate it into two. So the other cool thing about painting rocks is it's really great, you know, if you're just starting out and you don't have much. When I was just starting I didn't consider it a business yet. It wasn't a business in my mind, but I found out about the kindness rock movement, and my daughters, we started finding rocks at the parks and stuff that people would paint, and sometimes you find some really cool rocks, and so we would find some cool stuff, and my daughters just loved it, and I thought, you know what, that sounds like fun. It's something I can do, it's something they can do, you know, let's figure out a way we can do it together. And so we started painting together and doing the kindness rocks. And so I grabbed when I picked these, I grabbed a couple extra rocks for them too, and I primed them for them with the white paint so that they can paint. Okay, I'm going to do that a really, really light pink again. And a little more white. I'm just using really light, short strokes and just pulling up. And I know it's not looking like much yet. I always call the stage where we're just laying our foundation, our kind of awkward teenage stage, because we're just, it's coming together, but not quite there yet. So I'm adding another layer of purple on the tips of these, just so it's really bright and pretty. getting some paint on the side here. Okay. So that's looking pretty good so far. I'm gonna add just a little bit of a purple line here just to separate those two wings. Okay, now we're ready to move on to some different colors that are really pretty that I love to work with. So this metallic turquoise, I just rinsed and dried my brush, is one of my absolute favorites. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's really shimmery, and see how the purple on the tulips, that the metallic purple has dried now. See how shimmery that is? It's so pretty. So I'm just going to fill in this area with the turquoise paint. And you could paint, you know, hummingbirds, they have the ruby-throated hummingbird where like their chest is red. I saw a picture of one, I think it must have been a female the other day, that was kind of brown tones. You know, you can kind of paint them whatever tones you want. So these short little strokes are kind of creating that idea of where the feathers are flowing. So here the wing is going up, so I'm pulling my brush up. Here the wing is pointing in this direction, so then I pull my brush in that direction. And again, if you're just hopping on, I'm sure there are people commenting and I don't see any comments on my side, so I apologize if I'm not responding. It's not on purpose, I promise. It's for some reason I just can't see. It's probably maybe it is me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong with the text. So, okay, I add a little bit of white. I think I want to add some variation in the chest here. Just little dabs of white that I added to that turquoise. And I have noticed with turquoise paint, when you add white to it, it doesn't, when it's a metallic paint, the metallic look isn't, it kind of goes away. So it will not be very metallic-y with the white added to it. And I'll go in and I'll add some more detailed little tufts of the feathers there. I think I want to go, let's make the head and the bottom green, and then we can let's make the tail down here like the wings. So I'm going to rinse and dry my brush. I'm switching over to this metallic green and just blending it down into that lighter turquoise. And again, pulling my brush in the direction that the feathers would be growing. And even kind of going up towards the beak, just so I can get an idea. Wow, that's so shimmery. It's kind of like reflecting a lot with the light. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's kind of fun. And maybe this green, see how this is kind of like a line. I kind of want to blend this down a little more, so I'm going to pull it down the chest a bit, even down into the turquoise. Okay, so now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do green down here too. Maybe even we'll add a little bit over here with that turquoise. Kind of blending it in with this lighter tone. It's just adding a little bit of variation that way. And so this little guy's tail feathers are kind of, because you know they kind of hover over the flowers, and so his little tail feathers are kind of pointing to help him balance while he's hovering. So I'm going to start pulling my brush kind of in that direction. If you're just hopping on, feel free to say hi and share what you're up to today. Okay, now I'm going to switch back over to these really pretty colors that I used on the wings. I'm going to use this darker purple, maybe for the tips here. Actually, yeah, we'll do that for the tips. I'm going to tilt this so you guys can see it a little bit better. And you can see, like, I accidentally smeared my paint over here. I've got some paint here, so that's another reason why I kind of wait to do the background last on rocks, especially if they're like a commission. Because sometimes I kind of experiment and don't know where I'm going to end up and what color might look best. Okay, so let's rinse and dry that. Back into this pink color. And I'm kind of leaving a little bit of white to separate each of these tail feathers, just so I can see where they're at. You could even use extra paint and get an edge on there. So I have some extra paint on the edge of my paintbrush, and I was able to get an edge right along that. That's another way to kind of be able to separate them. Back into my lighter pink here. And then I kind of want right underneath here to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to continue that green down. And maybe even pull some into the feathers a bit. Just so it all looks like he's really connected. Okay, that's looking pretty. Okay, now we can go on to the details on his eye and his beak, and then we can go in and do the background. And actually, maybe we should even do the background before the eye and the beak, and then we can kind of outline things. So for the background, I'm thinking like a sky blue might be nice. So I'm going to grab my, I got my blue, I'm going to grab it real quick. There we go. Okay, so this is Brilliant Blue. Gotta be able to read upside down. So Brilliant Blue, it's super, super dark, but it's really bright and pretty at the same time. So I'm gonna mix some white with it. Again, I think I'm gonna have to loosen this up a little bit. It's just kind of thick. There we go. And if you already know if you were painting a rock and you already know what you want your background color to be, you could do the whole thing blue ahead of time. That's kind of fun too. Okay, so I'm just getting a little bit of blue because a little of this blue goes a really long way. I'm really gonna lighten it up. Then I'm gonna come in and just start painting around everything. I'm using my larger size 8 round brush. And this is you could kind of have fun, and you could go in and add some clouds if you want to. Sometimes one of my kind of signature things I like to do is leave a little bit of white around things. For one, it's easier to paint that way, and for another, it kind of makes things pop a bit. Once I outline things. Right now it's kind of looking like there's extra going on up there. I don't know if you guys can see that, where I left a little bit of white. And again, I kind of have to get in here and go over it a couple times because of just the little holes that are in the rock. And the best part about painting rocks is if you have resin and you decide to put resin on it. I love that part. You can see I'm kind of leaving the white around it, so it almost looks like a sticker. I'm gonna come up around these feathers here. I didn't start doing this where I left the white until I was doing a lot more commissions. And some people like it, some people don't. It just depends on the person. So, as I'm doing a commission, I may ask when I'm done doing, what I feel like is my best on it, I'll ask them, I'll share pictures like, okay, this is what I did today. What do you think? Is there anything you want me to change? And so if you've ever wanted to start doing art commissions for people, it's really a lot of fun, really simple. I'm not going to worry about painting the back of this yet. She wants me to put a Bible verse on the back of it, so she can have it in her garden and make that as a memory for her mom. So I'm going to wait and paint the back once I'm done with the front, and then let it dry so that I can add that verse on the back. So if you've never watched me paint before, you probably noticed I really love the colors. That's kind of my thing. I do love animals and flowers, and I don't know, I just kind of like all sorts of things. I do try to challenge myself sometimes and paint something different. So if there's something you want to see me paint, just comment and I will definitely keep it in mind. And maybe I won't be able to paint it right away. I do have, if you're watching and haven't watched me paint before, I have 3 kiddos and they're pretty young. So I can't always hop on and do lives, but I do love when I get to. So this area right here is pretty thin. Yeah, I think I'm going to get in there with a smaller brush. Switch over to this guy here. Let's see, I've got a sketch here, some pencil. I'm going to paint over that. Just kind of rounding around the head, the beak. Kind of the highlight of the hummingbird is its beak, I think, you know, and just they're so tiny and cute. I looked up what they mean. They're a symbol of joy and happiness. Sometimes people, when someone's passed away, they are like a memorial bird. Some of these spaces here. Another thing you can do, like behind flowers, is you could, if you were painting your background, you could make it kind of lighter green and kind of faded, so it looks like there's more foliage behind the flowers. That's kind of fun too. So normally if I was doing like a full landscape of this, I would not be painting blue underneath the tulips, but because I have to go all the way around and I'm going to be putting something on the back, I just want to make sure it's covered with a nice color. And sometimes if you kind of play with it, it's really pretty to do like the metallics and like make kind of a sunset kind of sky with them or something like that. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that background. I'm going to start working on the eye and the beak here, and then we'll add in some details. So I like to use really thin craft paint when I'm doing really little details. So I'm going to grab some black craft paint here. I'm going to go back to my smallest brush. It's a size, well, I do have smaller brushes than this, but this particular brush is a size 1. And it's not a fancy brush. You can get it anywhere, Walmart. You could get it at Michael's. You could get it at Hobby. You can get it online. I'm just filling in where the pupil of the eye would be. And then you can see some of my paint is still wet on the edge. So that's the thing about rocks, is you are going to get paint on your hands and you're probably going to have to go over it a little bit. So that's why I didn't paint underneath too. And then I'm going to, just so that I can get in here a little bit more easily, I'm going to end up getting paint here. Maybe if I just come up here. I'm outlining the eye a bit. And it is a textured surface, so kind of play with it and see. And right now the pupil looks huge, and that's on purpose. So we're going to end up doing a highlight on the eye, and that'll help it to look a little more natural. But for now, we just want to get the black markings in. And then I'm going to come in and fill in the beak. And their beaks are pretty long. And it's a little bit goes underneath here. Okay, so now finally our hummingbird is so cute and it's coming together. Sometimes they have like some cute little darker feathers here. So I'm going to take some of my black and add it to my green here, make kind of a really dark green. And just kind of tuck up underneath here to kind of add some shadow. And I'm doing kind of U like strokes. U shape. I'm going to pull it down. Pull it all the way down. Just to give that kind of feathered look. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my dotting tool for the highlight on the eye. So that's this guy here. I think I ordered a set of 3 of these on Amazon or maybe Michael's years ago. Dip into my white paint and just add a little dot here. See how that makes it look? It's a little more realistic now. So things are starting to come together, but it's not quite there yet because we still have to add some details to make things pop. And so I like to do that with black, kind of a black outline on things and adding some highlights. So I'm going to kind of look around and see. I've got a black paint pen, but it has been a while since I've used it, so I want to make sure it's going to do. I'm going to kind of play with it right here. Yeah, it'll do a good line. So let's see. I think we'll start with our flowers over here. Now this is where, you know, if you have kind of shaky hands, you might not want to do this part. Usually when I'm teaching parties, you know, I always say you don't have to do the outlining if you don't want to, especially little kids too. Little kids struggle with outlining things. And so I don't usually make little kids do the outlining part either. I don't know if you guys can see that. It can be pretty bold. On the rocks, it's hard to make sure you have a good straight line because it's textured. So it's a really great challenge if you're wanting to do something different. There's a little bit of a bump there, so my line was not as straight. You guys probably can't see it, the camera's a little far away, but it is starting to come together and making the flowers pop a little bit more. Come over here and do this side petal. And now you'll be able to kind of see the separations between each of the petals a little bit better. So see how wavy that line was? That looks terrible to me. So it's because of the surface of the rock being a little more bumpy. So what I like to do is I'll get a clean brush with just a little bit of water. You can use it as an eraser and kind of just pull the paint away where you don't want it. This is a technique that you can use with watercolor too. That's why I love acrylic. You can kind of, a lot of the mediums, you know, the way that you do things, you can do, they kind of share the same habits. There we go. So this one, you can see I kind of messed up there. I'm going to get back in my paint. Actually, I'm going to just grab my baby wipe here. Pull it up under that flower because it can kind of be a natural shadow. Or you can just wipe it away altogether. Black is one of the harder ones. You know, once you get it on there, you make a mistake. But it can always get painted over. And so that's the cool part about it. This was our leaf that's kind of hanging out in the background. You come up under here. And another thing too is you don't have to outline every little thing. I'm kind of doing that, but you don't have to. You could see how I'm doing this one. You could just get underneath and just get the underside of things where it's really dark. But just having the slightest little outline does help once we get our highlights on there. And like this guy back here, we can't even see it, so having that outlined a bit helps. And we haven't added our highlights yet either. That's the best part at the end. A few more highlights. So you can see the flowers outlined a little bit better now, but it's still pretty like a really bright black. So we'll go back in and kind of add some highlights. This shoulder comes up over here. But see how like we needed to separate these two to show where they're at, so that's going to help. Pulling this down to separate these wings. little bit over there, so I'm going to get my white. I'm going to erase that. Or not my white, but my water. And so these little spots where I didn't get it erased all the way, like see how it's kind of muddled there now? It's a little muddled here. I'm going to go back in and out and I'll fix those. That's the nice part about, you know, if you make a mistake, you can always go back and fix it. Okay, I'm going to pull this wing over here. And then as they come down, like up underneath, they get smaller and smaller. I can see how it's looking like in the camera. I'm liking how it's looking. I love the metallic. That's the fun part. And the cool thing is when we put the resin on it, it's going to make all the colors pop even more. I think I'm going to come and up under here. Just kind of pull down, make a zigzaggy look. And even come, let's add some more of these little feathers to stand out a bit more. Again, just putting little U shapes on there, really random. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with the outlining. I can go in and add a few more highlights here and there to soften things if I want to. I'm just going to take a smaller brush and kind of dip into my white paint and kind of go around and see what I want to add. So maybe up on top of the head here. Actually, I think I'm going to switch it to my smaller, really small brush to make it a little bit bolder. And then maybe a bit on the edge of the wings. Like that. And then down over here. And then remember how I was saying this was kind of muddled? I'm going to go over that with a little bit of white and fix it. And add a bit of a highlight over here. And we could do this with a white pen. Actually, now I think about it, dig into my bag of tricks over here and see. I wonder what this looks like on every single curving it around. Maybe even pull this down further on these. Oh, I can finally see the, oh my gosh. You guys, I'm such a nerd. So it kept saying like comments over here and I was on the banner. So this whole time, oh my gosh. Okay, so Lori said hi. Hey, Lori. Oh, she's anxious for the flamingo trailer next week. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for watching. I don't know if she's still watching or not. And Kay said hello from Kentucky. Thanks for saying hi and dealing with my operator errors. Yeah, we're doing if you live here locally, we're doing a paint party on the 28th at the Foster RV Park, and we're doing a camper with a flamingo on the side, and the background's kind of like a beach with like a palm tree, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. And there are still a few tickets left, so if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. Okay, I'm going to add just a little bit of white down here. I think I'm going to try that white pen. Let's see if I can find it. See how, it's like I said, it's been a while since I've used these and see how they work. It's not as bold of a white as I'd like. It's kind of watery looking. Might be time for some new pastas. I've had these since I started painting rocks. Oh yeah, I'm liking that right down the middle. Okay, I'm going to add a few more little white tufts here and there. And here, just to add a little more contrast with those black ones. I wonder what it looks like if we add some around the eye. I don't like that. So that's the fun part, is you can, if you don't like something, you can experiment and then you can just wipe it off or paint over it. So I didn't like that much, so I'm just wiping it off because my paint underneath is already dry. Okay, so now I can add some highlights over here on my flowers. So where I had my yellow along the edge, I'm going to come along that edge. And maybe here. Just kind of helping them to pop a little bit. And then up on the flowers, it looks really nice, like to have the white kind of down in here a little bit. And definitely on the edge. But I know in the video, it might be a little harder to see this on the edge. And you can use your white to kind of straighten up your black lines too. That's kind of what I'm doing here. Kind of make them a little thinner. And you can pull some thinner streaks down into the purple too. I kind of want to get in there with that dark purple. I feel like I missed that spot. So I'm going to grab my smaller brush and pull it in there. There we go. purple here too. Right up against this line here. And that's the other cool thing is once you've got your black on there, you can paint right over the top of it and it's still going to show through. I'm going to thin out this line a bit up here. Over the top of it there, so I'm going to fix that spot. Kind of zigzagging my white here just to pull it down in the tulips. Really get it on this edge. Okay, I'm gonna go, you can see how bright my white is over here, but over here is when I first started and it was kind of diluted. I'm gonna go back over this spot a bit more. There we go. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm gonna let it chill out and dry, and then I'll end up painting the back and putting the quote on it for them. So I'm gonna add my signature here. I have some other pasta colors. You can use a paintbrush. Pasta pens are awesome for putting your monogram on. I think I have purple. And actually, I have some glitter I'd like to add too. Let's add some glitter really quick. That's a really fun part too. Okay, so I have pink, purple, and turquoise glitter. So I'm gonna get a little bit of each out. And I love seeing the glitter on the, after the resin gets on it. So I'll probably make, maybe not a video, but maybe a time lapse or something showing the resin for. Okay, so I'm going to dip into my turquoise. I'm going to add a little bit of the turquoise onto the turquoise areas and even kind of up into the white, so it kind of looks like it splatters up. Might be hard to see. The teeny tiny flecks of turquoise are kind of pulling up the wings. And this turquoise, this is Holographic Illusions by DecoArt. And it's really easy to paint on. You can just use any brush. It's kind of like glue. Okay, actually I'm pretty good with that. Hi Linda, hey, thanks for hopping on. And then let's see, let's do some pink. Glitter. This Holographic Illusions glitter is so bright and sparkly when it dries. It doesn't do it justice on the camera here. But you guys will see it once I put the resin on. Don't want any more turquoise. Okay, now for the purple. Fun colors. Maybe we'll leave the tulips. Oh, I didn't put any pink over here. We will leave the tulips just regular. Sometimes I don't always like to put glitter on everything because it can be kind of overwhelming on the painting. You just pick a couple little spots where you can put it and make it look really nice. I'll add some along the bottom here. Oh my gosh, that's going to be pretty when it dries. I'm excited to see it when it's dry. I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see, but I'll take some good pictures so you can see it later. I think I might add just a little bit of purple glitter up underneath the flowers, but I think that's it. So this is probably my 4th or 5th hummingbird rock that I've painted. It's a really popular commission for people for their gardens. So if you would like me to paint you one, just message me and let me know, and I'll let you know pricing and stuff. Or if you are an artist and you're thinking that maybe your people would like this, you can always give it a try too. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I'll take some good pictures. Put my signature here by my bird's little tushy. And then I'll take some pictures once we get the resin on there, and you guys can see. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate you commenting, even if I couldn't see the comments till now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know if you want me to paint anything else live, or if you're interested, I do have a membership that is all about teaching paint parties with animals. It's kind of an animal-centered paint party membership, and we are opening the doors tomorrow. So if you want to check that out, just go to my website. It's www.artyourway.org, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.